Hello everybody and welcome back inside the box for another episode of Gunpla Kit Bash with me, Kukamatsu. In this episode we'll be chopping the leg panels, stretching them out, and then restabilizing them at the new length. So let's jump right in. Okay, let's get started. I figure the leg is probably going to be the most difficult part, the panels of the leg. So let's do that part first. What I'm thinking here is that the knee cap will just attach directly to here, because on this guy the knee is articulated, whereas on the original the knee just followed along with that piece. The main thing here is going to be stretching this panel component here. Basically need to stretch it about up to there, I think, so that it kind of goes around the top of that part of the inner frame and then comes down far enough so that it interacts with the foot. I'm going to make the foot bigger probably and go around this. So this is a good representation, I think, of where the foot will be across there. So I think that height is probably pretty good, and that means to add about 1.5 centimeters. Yep, let's call that exactly 1.5 centimeters. So what I'm thinking of doing is this whole thing has to stretch higher. So the trick is going to be to cut it somewhere where once we stretch it, it doesn't look like I just cut it and stretch it. And because it tapers, that is going to be tricky. But I think the only thing we really can do is cut it, stretch it, and see how it looks. See how much we have to rebuild to get that flowing again. So I'm thinking of basically cutting straight through here. Like that, and then we will see what it looks like when we stretch it up. I'm going to be using this razor saw. This is something I bought at my local hobby shop, but you can also buy these online. And it has a nice thin blade, so it's going to do a hopefully fairly clean cut. And it's a nice long blade, so it'll give me a straight cut. So let's just go ahead and chop this. Actually, probably best to take it apart now that I've marked it. Chop these parts all separately. Just going to put a couple of tacks of super glue on there just to hold it stable to that one. If I need to separate the begin, I'll be able to just cut or grind the super glue off from behind. I'm just going to use this, which is gap filling medium super glue, and a kicker, which is called Instaset, which I put in this little container here because I find it easier to squirt it out a little end like that rather than spray it on, because when you spray it, it just goes everywhere except where you want it, or at least it does for me. Okay, let's see how this is going to look when it's stretched out. It's going to be basically like that. You know, on first glance, it doesn't look too bad. It looks like we can make a nice transition there. The next thing will be to actually do the extension and put in some supports at the back to get the spacing correct. So I'm thinking the best way to proceed might be to put a piece of styrene straight across this edge here. So if we have the front edges matching up, then it will offset the back edges, but I think we have some extra room to add some epoxy putty or something to sculpt this round shape at the back, whereas at the front we really want this line to continue on. So I have some styrene strips here. Cut a couple of these. I'm thinking just gluing it straight across the back like that. Okay, so I've cut a couple of small pieces that are both 1.5 centimeters. I'm going to use one for one leg and one for the other. And the idea is just to glue it straight on there, and it'll act as a spacer so that I'll get some consistency between the two parts. So this isn't meant to be structural, that's why I just glued it on the edge there. But the idea is that now I know what the spacing should be like here. Yeah, I think this is going to work out pretty well. Gluing it on there is going to give me a nice edge there. And I'm gluing it on the outside just because it's easier. This is all going to need a lot of filing and sanding anyway. So I can eventually cut off this piece once I have the rest of the support material in place. This is just a way to get it kind of lined up straight off the bat. The other tricky thing that I'm going to need to be careful about is getting it lined up side to side, and that's going to be just something I'm going to eyeball. I think the easiest thing to do actually is just to glue that on one side to start. So now I just have to put this side on and eyeball it to make sure that it's kind of straight. I think that's looking pretty good. You can really see the offset now that I have that solidified. But we'll be able to bring this down around here and solve that problem. The other problem that I need to deal with is the offset of that and that now. That's tricky. Okay, I've given that some thought. I didn't anticipate that particular problem, and now I have to try and find a solution that's going to work. And what I'm thinking of is actually just removing this piece here and moving it back so that they line up again, and then filling in the space that's left over behind here, and then trying to find a new way for it to integrate into the back here. So I have some debonder. I'm going to try it. This is going to be a test. I've never tried this on this kind of plastic before. It's some super glue debonder. Let's see how it works. Okay, here it is here. It's called Uncure. Okay, well, we won't do that because it damaged the polystyrene. So we're just going to have to cut this guy off. Oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. Okay, so my thinking is to line those up, something like that, and then just fill in that space there. You know, it's possible that it didn't actually damage the plastic, it just spread the super glue across the surface, but in any case, it's not really a good result. Maybe there's a better way to do it. If you know, let me know in the comments. Maybe I just need to brush it off more. Let's just give it a try. Put a little more on there. It doesn't really like easily remove it from the surface. Though it's definitely dissolving the glue. It sort of sticks to the surface rather than coming off. So yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work. The really tricky part now is going to be getting these to line up properly. What I'm hoping to do is put in these support pieces and then slot this over top of them, and they will bend in as I push that on. That's the hope. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'll just try and get this over the top of those. Carefully. There we go. That, I think, basically achieved what I was hoping for. Okay, I'm just going to go for it here and line this up by eye, stick some super glue down in there. There we go. In principle, I think we have it kind of figured out. And the plan ultimately, I think, is going to be to fill in the space with epoxy putty. But I want something to be act as a backing there so that the putty doesn't just, well, it needs something to sit up on top of. So I'm going to use this thinner styrene and just put some pieces all the way along so that there's some kind of structure that I can then smear the epoxy putty onto. That's it. That's the concept anyway. We'll see how it goes. Just cut a few of these pieces around the same length. I don't think it's going to matter too much. I can adjust as I go. Okay, there we go. It's the basic idea is pretty solid, I think. And I'll be able to smear the epoxy putty over that surface without worrying about it just all squeezing into the middle. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. This is going smoother than I thought. This is definitely the hardest part, I think, on this whole project. And I mean, I still have a lot of fixing and sanding to do, but in terms of the structure, I believe we are where we want to be. And that is the end of the episode. In the next episode, we'll be filling that space with epoxy putty and then sanding it smooth. So if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like down below. Check out the playlist for previous videos. Subscribe if you want to follow along, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.